Hello, everybody, anybody, and everybody that's listening this day. It is Friday, October 25. Shout out to my friend Laura Zand. It's her birthday. Yay, Laura. I know she's having some fun somewhere. And I am going to talk on a subject that we've all been hearing about, called Project 2025. It's interesting because, of course, right as the election was ramping up, a lot of people hadn't heard about this, and now I think pretty much everybody's heard about it. I'd say the far right Republican conservatives are trying to deny it or play it down or don't really have a clue. Because they've been brainwashed if they're just watching mainstream news. But I'm going to give you some real data that I believe is true, exposing the far right assaults on Americans that this project entails. This extremist mandate for leadership, that's what it's called. It's called a mandate for leadership, dubbed Project 25. Okay. Presidential Transition Project, quote unquote, is a 900-page document published by the Heritage Foundation, and it's meant to serve as a roadmap for the far-right presidential administration. It's their roadmap that they've got a plan. Okay, it's good to have a plan, but it was interesting in the first and only presidential debate, Trump didn't want to talk about his plan. He was asked a few times about a plan on certain topics, and he, totally disregarded it and, just didn't really know. I mean, I don't even know if he even knows everything that this 900-page document is entailing. But believe me, there will be massive changes. So anybody that doesn't want massive, extreme changes happening on a lot of things that are very important that may directly affect you, you should be informed. This policy's proposals are sweeping and would affect nearly every facet of American life. Those rules and regulations that were set forth. But me, as having Native American roots, and others, even if you don't have roots here in this country as a Native, also feel for what happened. That's why last week, or was it the week before, Columbus Day is now known as Indigenous Peoples Day around the nation. And, anytime something is brought up about way back then, when everything started in this country, it just reminds me of the brutal bloodshed that happened when the Europeans, the white man, came over and took over this land. So I, by no means, are proud of that, living in this country and what happened there. And it just breaks my heart, and I, really feel it deeply. So with that said, let's talk about what this proposed Trump Project 2025 means. It's dissolving the American idea. The plan's extremist policies would give far-right politicians, judges, and corporations more control over Americans' lives. We don't want more control, do we? Do we need more control? It's going to end the Department of Education, replacing government employees with Trump's sycophants. I think I said that word right, sycophants. The definition of a sycophant is someone who praises powerful or rich people in a way that is not sincere, usually in order to get some advantage from them. Okay? So think about that. It's going to defund the DOJ, which is the Department of Justice, so Trump never faces consequences again. Or has he faced any consequences for how many dozens of felonies he has? Seems like he hasn't. It's going to ruin our Social Security and Medicare programs as well. Republicans are counting on California voters not to notice how horrendous their plan really is. They think they can get away with it and it won't impact the election. Climate change concerns. Okay, this is what I'm going to talk about because this is like a hot topic for me, and I just did an episode on climate change a few weeks ago. Climate change concerns. Trump, as we all know, last time he was in office, pulled us out of the Paris Climate Agreement in 2019. And if he gets back in office, he will definitely, again, pull the U.S. economy out of it once again, as well as ending the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, that he's been wanting to put an end to, which has helped us dismantle pollution since the 80s. Project 2025 will abolish the NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, and replace the experts on climate change, gutting this class of public service. We need this to have the data to prepare for the future, y'all. What's here already and only getting worse with all the natural disasters. Trump will roll back these programs that we need. Okay, this is a statement that Mark Ruffalo gave at a conference that MoveOn.org did on this last week. And I'm sorry, I don't know the guy's name that was on there, but he was one of the representatives speaking. And just FYI, he lives in Chicago and he has his entire life. He said, and I did not know this, for the first time ever, Chicago is experiencing tornadoes. They had 2 tornadoes this past year in Chicago. So that he said he has never experienced. I think he's probably around 50 years old. And yeah, it's just cray-cray. Project 25 promotes a presidential agenda that rolls back civil and human rights and implements extremist conservative policies across every federal department and agency. Its sweeping far-right policy framework by the conservative think tank, the Heritage Foundation, and includes numerous attacks on sexual and reproductive health and rights. It proposes several strategies for restricting and ultimately eliminating access to an extremely safe and effective medication used in the most common regime for medication-based abortion in the United States, as well as keeping abortion illegal in many states now. Decreasing access to medication abortion by either mechanism could in turn increase demand for procedural care, placing additional strains on clinics and increasing wait time for patients. Further, Project 25 suggests that a hostile administration could bypass the FDA and effectively ban medication abortion and potentially all abortions through enforcement of the Comstock Act, an 1873 anti-obscenity law that prohibits mailing anything intended for producing abortion. Okay, this is something that happened back in 1873 to completely ban any kind of, anything trying to end a pregnancy for any reason. Okay, what are we talking? 150 years ago, and they're trying to go back to something of ways we were living back in 150 years ago. 1873, y'all. Okay, this is backwards, ludicrous bullshit. Project 2025 also seeks to dismantle U.S. abortion access in a number of other ways. It's calling for the Department of Health and Human Services to dismantle the abortion protections provided under the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, which is the EMTALA, a federal policy that outlines requirements for emergency departments that receive Medicare funds. There's more details on this and a link that I will put in the show notes. This abortion Another thing that's happening with this, different subject within this 900-page document, is that the Biden-Harris administration, I'm giving you a little history here, has used its executive powers in the last few years under the Antiquities Act to establish, expand, or restore 8 landscape-level national monuments, okay? These new protections, totaling more than 3.7 million acres and including places such as Kastner Range National Monument in Texas and Avi Kwa Ame National Monument in Nevada, have benefited communities across the American West. They have played a particular role in serving nature-deprived communities, those experiencing higher than average nature loss, and making a solution for the disproportionate impact that nature deprivation has on communities of color. But Project 2025 threatens to remove all these protections from these new monuments under a potential conservative administration. The Heritage Foundation's Project 2025 is an extreme far-right playbook that seeks to unravel many core American principles and policies, including the conservation of the country's natural wonders. It explicitly calls for the removal of much of the Biden-Harris administration's conservation and climate progress, including actions taken through long-established and bipartisan tools such as the Antiquities Act. This conservative agenda could mean rolled back or even expunged protections for national monuments. This Project 2025 poses a risk to conserved nature and threatens the families and communities who rely on the benefits of nature for their health and well-being. This would put oil and gas industry before Americans and their public lands. The policies that benefit the oil and gas elitists are focused on public lands, despite the staggering profits and financial benefits the industry already receives. This plan would further shift the balance of America's public lands and waters toward oil and gas. Project 2025 recommends that the U.S. Bureau of Land Management, the branch of the Department of the Interior that oversees oil and gas activity on public lands, get rid of the barriers to bolstering oil and gas activities. Learn more with the links below. Project 2025 recommends not only making as much of the country's public waters as possible available for leasing, but also redoing the current schedule, which could put significantly more public waters up for rent. Additionally, the project directs the federal government to auction off public lands every quarter. Project 2025 takes aim at specific and precious places across the country. For example, its policies would offer up millions of acres across the North Slope of Alaska, both in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge and the Western Arctic, to the oil and gas industry for leasing and drilling. The project touches everything from healthcare and abortion rights to overtime pay and education. This radical policy agenda would concentrate federal power in the presidency, direct all levers of government to dismantle democracy, and pull the rug out from under America's middle class. Project 2025, officially titled Mandate for Leadership, the Conservative Promise, is an extremist blueprint crafted by the Heritage Foundation to guide a far-right presidential administration. This 900-page manifesto outlines sweeping policy proposals that would upend nearly every aspect of American life. At its core, Project 2025 seeks to unravel the system of checks and balances that has been foundational to American democracy for the past 250 years. Far from a fringe idea, this authoritarian playbook is already influencing state policies in places that are seeing attacks on reproductive rights, worker protections, and public safety. From stripping away women's rights to dismantling union efforts, Project 2025 paints a disturbing picture of the future that the far right envisions for our country. This project is a roadmap for how a new far right presidential administration can take over the country. Fundamentally, the authoritarian playbook proposes to consolidate power in the presidency. And in order to do that, it would remove the checks and balances that have defined our republic since its founding. Learn more with the links below, including many other ways that this mandate will affect unions, labor rights, healthcare, Social Security benefits, veterans, and education. Stand behind artists like Stevie Wonder, Common, John Legend, Lizzo, Mark Ruffalo, Eminem, Willie Nelson, Cher, Ben Stiller, Anne Hathaway, Neil Young, Jennifer Lawrence, Bruce Springsteen, Billie Eilish, George Clooney, Taylor Swift, Barbra Streisand, Jamie Lee Curtis, Sally Field, Carole King, Jason Bateman, Oprah, Jeff Bridges, and my favorite, Meryl Streep. And I'm sure there are a ton of others that I did not mention here. But don't be foolish by the lies. This is real ass bullshit. Be educated and please vote the right way. Or maybe I should say the left way, not the right extremist way that we're talking about right now. Please do your part. Be educated. Know these things. Don't be fooled by the media, the mainstream media out there. They're lying to you. They're paid for by these billionaires. And I probably won't do another episode like this. I'm really, not super political, but I do care about these matters. I have children that I brought into this world. I care about their futures. I care about our environment. And so this is impacting a lot for us. And that's why I wanted to give a shout out about it. Your support is very appreciated and helps sustain more episodes in the wellness realm. Please share this podcast with someone else and leave me a 5-star review kindly if you have a chance. It just takes a few minutes. As well as subscribing if you want to be a supporter of this podcast. There's a small donation you can give, and with that, you get a free 15-minute wellness consultation for you or a loved one from myself. Please let me know what you thought of this podcast, and if you have any questions or concerns, leave them either comment in the notes below, or you can DM me, of course, personally. Thank you and have a beautiful day.